So a few weeks ago, not a few weeks, about a week ago, we just returned from a big family vacation to Belize. Kristen and I this year celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. Our son Desmond turned 20 this year. Our daughter Margaret has already turned 25, so it was a big year of celebration in the Kahn household. So we decided to take a family vacation to someplace fancy and far away. And somehow Belize became the destination. So there is a lot to say about our time in Belize. Needless to say, it is beautiful. The people are gracious. I love the food. The weather was awesome, between 83 and 85 all the time. The water was warm and clear, and we had a great time together as a family. But I also found it to be a place of contrasts. There were times when I would see something that would just confound me. And I'd look again. Did I just see that? Like what was that about? Have you ever had an experience like that? It's just like, what? Right? When you hear something or you see something, and you're like, I do not get that. I do not understand that. And I'm not talking about language confusion. I have that all the time, even here. I'm just talking about a complete lack of my capacity to understand whatever perspective is going on behind the thing that I witness. I also have that experience every once in a while when I'm watching the news. An interview or a panel, I'm like completely befuddled at the thing that they represent that I just can't get my mind around. So back to Belize, I was there and I had a moment of befuddlement. We were driving down a very narrow, rather bumpy road in our golf cart. If you like golf carts but you don't like to golf, Belize is the place. At least I should say San Pedro Island, where all of the transportation for the most part happens in golf carts. And so we're driving down the road, and I see a man standing up ahead of us on the side of the road outside of a resort. He was wearing a uniform. I was assuming he was a security guard. And as we're approaching him, he was taking a final swig of something in a plastic bottle and then in an arcing motion launched it into the ditch. And as I watched it roll to its final resting place, I was like, did that just happen? Why did that happen? And I was in a moment of befuddlement. There was some trash on the side of the road on the island of San Pedro. I never saw a trash truck. I never saw folks picking it up. And I couldn't help but think, what if the security guard had this job for the rest of his life? How many bottles would accrue in that ditch? Like what? Just one a day, but it was a hot place, so 3 a day. And I started to do the math. For me, it didn't add up, and the number got pretty big, pretty fast, and I couldn't hold it all in my mind. So I decided that way of trying to think about it is probably not the way to think about it. So I shifted, and I decided that my contemplation around this thing that I saw that I didn't get needed to maybe come at it from contextual imagination. So I sought to create a framework in which I could see that experience from his point of view. You with me? Trying to engender some empathy. So imagine, what's his life like? Right? What's his job like? What's his family like? Right? Has he ever even been off the island of San Pedro? Who's he seen throw bottles into 2 ditches? His father, his family, his friends, his parish priest? And so I sought to get myself into the context of his life. In full confession, I couldn't do it. I couldn't understand the link between action and context. I did not have the capacity to see from his particular point of view. I did not have the empathetic insight. And I remained confounded. Have you ever been there? Befuddled? Can't quite see it from somebody else's point of view? Saw a thing or heard a thing, and you tried to get there, and it was hard to get there. So I moved again. I thought, As I considered it and the action, it came to mind, this may not be true, but it's what I'm holding to. It came to mind that arcing action was not a thoughtful action, but a habitual action, right? Just something he does. I mean, he wasn't doing it intentionally. He wasn't trying to hit a tree like I might, playing a game with it. It just happened. And while that particular thoughtless action confounded me, where he and I are alike, it turns out that I have my own thoughtless actions in my life as well, right? The thing that I participate in. And I know you're thinking, boy, that's a long story to get to that fact. Doikon actually has thoughtless actions. No revelation there, because we all do, don't we? Right? And even more than we understand, right? That somebody else sees us doing a thing, and we don't even understand. It's a thoughtless action. So this guy in Brazil gave me a gift. Right? He inspired me as he stood there in front of the hotel, arcing out his plastic bottle into a ditch, that he and I were connected not by activity, not by the thing, not by bottle throwing, not by empathy, my being able to understand his life and his perspective and how that tied to the action, not by intellectual imagination, but maybe just by thoughtless habits. He has them and I have them. Turns out that's sort of a depressing thought. But the important thing in all of that is this was an exercise towards connectivity, that he and I are connected, inextricably interconnected. Physicists would call that entanglement, right? The theologians would call it pantheism. The interconnected levels of network, writes Arthur Koestler, constitutes a web of life wherein systems interact with other systems, forming networks within networks. You with me? Sort of like Russian dolls. You seen those Russian dolls? Sort of like fractals. Now, Koestler calls these systems within systems Holons. Holons are defined as something that is simultaneously a whole and a part. You got it? You with me? A holon, simultaneously a whole and a part. Like that hotel security guard in Belize. Simultaneously a whole, functional, vital human being and a part. Right? A part of a community and part of an environment, part of the world. And he and I are connected, and I am a holon as well, full and complete in my anonymity, but also a part. Not a part of being connected to him, part of being connected to you and this community and this city. I'm connected to the air we breathe. I'm connected to the cosmos in which we sit. I'm connected to the past, and I'm connected to the future, and so are you. Am I right? Amen? All right, because it's true. But the interesting thing is that sometimes it's hard to feel what it feels like to be just a part. Because we mostly feel as if we are the whole thing, right? That we are complete, that we are the center of it, and it is through our perspective, our wholly, full, and complete perspective, that we see things. And that's the case because of our sight line, isn't it? Right? Our context in how we see the world. That gives an illusion. This gives an illusion that we are at the center of the universe. Who's at the center of the universe? Yeah, the three of us, just the three of us. You know why just the three of us? Because it's Trinity Sunday. Absolutely. Right? And so here's the interesting thing. The befuddlement crops up inevitably It crops up inevitably when we see someone else as a part at a moment in time when they are doing a thing from the wholeness of their being. We see them as part. And we can't understand, and this is the befuddlement, we can't understand why they don't see what they're doing as a thing that impacts the greater whole. That they are just a part of this greater whole. You with me? We can't understand why they can't see the part that they play when it's so clear to us. The Apostle Paul helps us in the letter to the Romans today. Let me quote. He writes, "If you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if you live by the Spirit, you will put to death deeds of the body and you will live." Let me read it another way to help clarify. If you live according to yourself as the center, as the whole, then you will die. But if you live with yourself as part of the whole in the Spirit, you will remain alive. Right? You see, the Spirit is our interconnectedness, marking us out as part of the whole, which makes perfect sense because our God is interconnected. Our God is whole, right? And our God is three parts: Father and Son and Holy Spirit, simultaneously. And the thing that makes the parts so perfect in the whole is that they always know they are part of the whole to which they're a part, which is why they live together in perfect unity as three and one in God. This is our Trinitarian God, a Holon. So the Spirit is our interconnectedness, according to Paul, marking us as part of the eternal whole, even while our body places us as the center of the whole thing, which is a place with an inevitable end, as Paul also reminds us. So here's the blessing of the Belize bottle befuddlement. It's not that I could understand the action. It's not that I could empathize or get insight into the context. And I did stumble along our connection between the thoughtlessness, but that isn't even the point. The point is, even if I could never get to the other side of understanding the action or the person or the place in the context of that time, still connected. Right? We are still connected. And when we understand that and we live into that perspective, then being a part of the whole is the more interesting and dynamic and vital way to live. You with me? It's hard. And so I invite you today to wonder, what bottle are you holding in your hand? What bottle are you tossing into the ditch? I wonder about that for myself. I'm not sure what it is because it's hard to see it when you're in it. That's why we live in community, because sometimes they can help us. Is it the swipe of a credit card? I don't know, maybe. Is it scraping all that excess food off my plate? Maybe. Is it 20-minute hot showers? No. Or buying another book? I don't know. Or firing up my super-powered weed whacker? I wonder, when do other people see me as a part when I'm acting as if I am the whole, the entire thing? So I'll leave you with that. Right, I'll leave you to look into your own hand. See what bottle you're holding, what bottle you're tossing it to the side. What actions you participate in that are sometimes habitually thoughtless. Habits that emanate from yourself as a center rather than yourself as part of the whole, the eternal, the Trinitarian God.